you know, we talk a lot about the internet, but what we're really talking about is a global resource, and it's a global resource with a lot of organizations and people behind the scenes who work tirelessly to ensure it continues to grow for the benefit of everyone. And one of those organizations is called the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or as we call it, ICANN. And today we have with us Joe Catapano to talk a bit about what ICANN does and how you can get involved in their activities. Joe?
Thanks, Mark. Thanks everybody for having me. It's great to be here. Um, I, I'm focusing, I'll focus a little bit on kind of internet governance and kind of that kind of world. I know I see a couple of people in the participant tab who are, familiar faces, but I know a lot of you just don't, aren't really exposed to a lot of this. So I'll keep it very high level. I will try to not use a bunch of acronyms because that's kind of the world we live in. And I do apologize in advance. I have to leave at about 10 till the hour because I have a session that I need to moderate for our next ICANN meeting, which is ICANN 72, and we have a prep week that's going on right now. So I am going to share my screen here. Actually, see if I can. Is that good?
I can see it. Looks good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my name is Joe Catapano, and I am the Stakeholder Engagement Senior Manager for the North America region at ICANN. So I interface with all sectors in the region in the US, Canada, and the affiliated island territories. So, sorry. I'm gonna keep it at this size if you don't mind. So if we take a look at kind of internet governance and you take a look at some of the history. So the internet started as a project of the United States Department of Defense. It was known as the ARPANET. And coming up, I believe it's the 29th of October, is the anniversary of the first transmission that was sent over the ARPANET from Los Angeles, specifically UCLA, to Stanford University up in Northern California. So, and now, of course, the internet has grown to this massive global resource with more than 3 billion users. So, kind of in the beginning, the primary focus of what we term as internet governance was on developing, interoperable standards. So it was more kind of seeing things through the lens of the technical aspect of the internet, how it runs, as opposed to sort of a traditional, governance, quote unquote, in terms of like policy and parliamentary procedure and things of that nature. Now, over time, the internet morphed in from an academic project into more of a driver of global commerce and more than just an information sharing platform, outside of academia. And during the 90s, the internet grew exponentially and was in many ways dominated by private firms and commercial interests. And then eventually, as we moved toward into the 21st century, obviously the internet became far more global and connectivity expanded outside of North America and parts of Western Europe and such. Now, with that kind of international expansion came increasing efforts to the term used is kind of multilateralize what we now term as internet governance. And when we talk about, multilateral institutions. You can think of things like the United Nations or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations, things like organizations like that, where it's, essentially one country, one vote type of governance structure. The traditions of the internet from its founding were not a one state, one vote kind of government centric construct. It was more focused along the lines of what we refer to in this space as a multi-stakeholder model, which is basically many sectors coming together to help set the rules of the road for the internet. So there is businesses at the table, as well as civil society groups, technical organizations, academics, and governments. The sort of main kind of multilateral institution that interfaces with internet governance issues is the International Telecommunications Union. It is older than the United Nations. It was formed in 1865, and it came under the auspices of the UN in 1947. And so if we fast forward to the year 2003, there was kind of a groundswell of this desire to figure out, for lack of a better term, how to set policies for the internet, how to kind of govern what was going on. So the ITU held something called the World Summit on the Information Society in Geneva in 2003. And then there was another one held in 2005 in Tunis. And this second meeting in 2005 provided one of the bases for what we term as internet governance today. That document was called the Tunis Agenda, and it led to the creation of something called the Internet Governance Forum, which happens every year. And I know the Internet Society participates very frequently in that arena, and ICANN as well. We usually do some events, side events around the forum. There are also, I should point out, there are national and regional IGF efforts that kind of happen throughout the year. And so you may see those in your communities, depending on where you live. So the IGF doesn't have operational control over the internet. It doesn't have treaty power. It basically provides an alternative platform for debating internet policy, something that is outside of, again, that kind of system of one state, one vote, and it kind of exists alongside some of these other governance bodies, right? Like ICANN, and then there's other ones that I'll show on the next slide. And then the last bullet on this slide here is what we have seen recently in the space is kind of a move towards something that is being termed as technical internet governance. And again, I think what we're seeing is this effort to talk about technical internet governance as a way to, I don't know if partition is the right word to use, but kind of set lines between governing the technical underpinnings of the internet and then kind of the more, again, kind of like policy, governance policy, and kind of like where the state level, governance kind of fits in. So in talking about technical internet governance, we basically are talking about the process of developing open technical standards, software protocols, and coordinating billions of unique addresses to keep people and organizations safe. And that's kind of at the heart of what technical internet governance is. It is focused on the way the internet works, the purely technical aspects of internet governance, which relates to the components that contribute to a secure, stable, and resilient internet. a crucial aspect of technical internet governance is the need to ensure, from a technical perspective, that the internet is accessible to everyone. And so there's a strong focus on, adherence to open technical standards, standards that would spur innovation and growth, which in turn makes the internet, better. So improving the understanding of the technical underpinnings of the internet among non-technical stakeholders, particularly within governments, but also within businesses, civil society, is really vital to the technical internet governance effort. Because basically the more people who understand and contribute to and sustain the technical development of the internet, the better the global system will operate. So this here is kind of just a little snapshot of some of the participants in the technical community, right? So I'll go into ICANN in a little bit, just a touch deeper in a couple of slides. But basically, these are some of the bodies that coordinate together to help make the internet work. So you'll see ICANN listed there. There's also the Internet Engineering Task Force, which is, as the title would lend itself to, engineers that work on setting technical policy for how the internet is run. There are also DNS operators. There are root server operators. There are regional internet registries, right? So the organizations around the world that delegate IP addresses to ISPs and users. And so those are just gives you kind of a sense of, technically who's on the scene there. And then here is kind of a look at some of the more non-technical, the intergovernmental organizations and other entities that also work in the space and help things run and help these bodies collaborate on policy, right? So there's the Internet Society, of course, and their chapters. Organizations like the OECD, and then, as we said, UN bodies and the Internet Governance Forum, and other standards organizations there. So I'll just go back for a minute. So as you can see, no one organization controls the internet. No one organization governs the internet. No organization is an island unto itself. They all kind of work together to make things happen. So in terms of ICANN, we govern and oversee a specific part of the internet, particularly the unique identifiers, right? So when we talk about that, we're talking about domain names and internet protocol addresses. So we coordinate the allocation and assignment of names in the root zone of the DNS. And we are, I guess it's, well, now it's kind of, they're contracted with an organization called the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, which holds the global base of IP addresses. So we have that kind of technical function, right? Resolving the names and the numbers, make sure people, get to where they're going. And then on the non-technical side, we have a non-technical kind of remit or mission where we gather, we are a gathering place for a global community that develop and implement policies that help, in the domain name space and the internet protocol space. Many of those participants, I believe, are on this call right now. And those, again, they come from all those sectors I mentioned before: businesses, civil society, academics, end users, governments. So that's, kind of a snapshot there. This kind of slide gives you a little sense of, the three legs of the ICANN stool, if you will, the ICANN ecosystem, right? So we've got the community, which I mentioned before, which is made up of different organizations and committees and such that work on policy development and in working groups. Then there is the organization, which I'm a member of, right? So there's roughly 400 staff members at ICANN. We are spread across the world, and we kind of act as a bit of a secretariat and support the community in their work. And then we have a board of directors that has the fiduciary responsibility and the other kind of general runnings that a board would do. So that kind of gives you a snapshot of ICANN and what we do. I am going to, so right now, just while we're here, I'm actually going to stop sharing for a minute. Right now, we are in the midst of one of our 3 public meetings every year, right? So most of the policy development takes place on conference calls and email, Zoom, etc. But there are 3 times out of the year where the entire community gathers. Pre-COVID, we gathered in person. We're currently not doing that. Everything is virtual right now. But our 72nd meeting is coming up on the 25th of October. Right now, we are engaged in what we call prep week, right? Which is a few days. We started yesterday, it goes through Thursday. And there's just various presentations talking about what the community is talking about, showing people, what's going on, what to expect, and give them, kind of what their appetite for the meeting that happens a couple of weeks later. ICANN meetings are notoriously difficult to navigate for newcomers. We know that. We try our best to make it easier. So one of the things that we are doing that is happening at the top of the hour, and is why I need to leave in 5 minutes. I'm just putting into the chat, sorry. We are having a what to expect at ICANN 72 guide for newcomers, right? So this is something that newcomers could come in, get a little taste of what ICANN is, what we do, a little bit about the policy development process, kind of get familiar with that, as well as what people will be talking about at ICANN 72. We won't go over everything, but we'll go over kind of the hot topics, the top line things. We'll talk a little bit about some of our newcomer programs, which are good ways to get involved at ICANN. We have a fellowship that, fellows, we have a cohort for every ICANN meeting. We also have a next gen program for folks ages 18 to 30 that are enrolled in university. So that's another way to be involved. And we do have something called ICANN Learn, which is a self-guided online platform that has different courses that you can take as trying to familiarize yourself with with everything. So I'm sure you have some great presentations coming up at the summit, so I'm not going to sandbag the summit, but if you are interested, pop over to the newcomer session. It will also be recorded, so if you can't make it today, I can share the recording link with Mark, and I can share the slides. I think there was a note in the chat about sharing the slides. So with that, I know it was very short, but I tried to be concise without losing everybody, which can happen sometimes when you talk about internet governance.
15 minutes to cover what happens at ICANN is sorely.
I've been working there 8 years, and I don't think I've covered everything.
Once we can go back to in-person meetings, I encourage everyone to go to an ICANN meeting if you can. It is difficult to navigate, but people are very helpful, and it's a sight to see. It is absolutely incredible. I've done more than my fair share of ICANN meetings in my past. So, and it's always an enjoyable time.
Yeah, and I'll pop the, before I exit, I'll pop the links to the fellowship and next gen program in the chat so you guys can see that and see if you're interested. And I can learn. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Joe. I see Laura's posted in the chat about the North American School of Internet Governance.
Mm-hmm.
I'll highly recommend it if you're interested, and maybe we can get a link in the chat in a minute. But Joe, thank you so much, and hope your session goes well at the top of the hour.
Thanks very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Appreciate it.